In Game 7 yesterday, the Thunder took down the Denver Nuggets to advance to the conference finals, and with that, our matchups are now set in stone. We have the Oklahoma City Thunder going up against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the New York Knicks going up against the Indiana Pacers. Both of these series look like they have the potential to be really, really fun, and there's a lot of interesting individual matchups as well as things to look forward to. Let's break it down. Also of note is that this is a continued exhibit of the parody of the modern NBA. Because ever since 2019 with that Raptors championship, no team that has won the title has won it since. And this is coming off of an era where we had a dynasty and the Golden State Warriors, and they were facing off against the Cavs, it seemed like almost every year. But now there's a lot more nuance to the league, and you never really know who's going to come out on top. And this is another example. 2019, you had the Raptors. 2020, the Lakers. 2021, the Bucks. 2022, the Warriors. 23, the Nuggets. And 24, the Celtics. All those teams are out now. And we've got the Wolves, the Thunder, the Knicks, and the Pacers. They have not won on the biggest stage in recent memory. And so you're going to be getting some fresh champions regardless. And I think that's just really cool to see when you're taking a look at the state of the league, the state of the association, right? In terms of we have so much talent now where year by year you can never really guarantee success, even if you're doing everything right, because someone else might be doing that just a little bit better than you. There is not this massive talent disparity anymore. Even looking at the bottom tier teams in the league, like the Charlotte Hornets or the Utah Jazz, a couple years ago, the Jazz were the one seed for a while. And the Hornets, they've got the likes of Mark Williams, LaMelo Ball, Brendan Miller. Yes, guys like LaMelo especially have dealt with injuries, but there's talent on that roster. There's talent all across the league. And you can make, an argument for any of these teams being really solid, right? But it always evens out, and you have to have bottom tier teams, and so you still get that. But there's always talent on them. Let's build upon that. Look at the Jazz. A couple years ago, they were the one seed for a second to start off the year. It was a major, major surprise. They were led by Lowry Markkanen, who was averaging 25 a game. And then I don't believe they even made the playoffs that year by the end of it. Because as much talent as they had, right, you can point out individual players on that team and say, hey, this guy I believe has the potential to be a really good player in this league. But talent isn't everything. And other teams end up getting the edge on them because they've also got enormous levels of talent. So even though they were the one seed for a while, nothing is guaranteed because the league is so talented. There's so much parity. You never know where you're going to end up. I hope I explained that well. And I think that's a really cool thing to just kind of have the unpredictable element of it. And it just makes the viewing experience even more exciting because you never truly know who's going to come out on top. And another trend I believe that we've had is that going back to that 2019 Raptors ring, yes, of course we have not had a repeat champion, but we haven't really seen these champions when they're defending their title the following year. We haven't really seen them go on to even get past the second round, really. And whether that's through injuries like this year's Celtics or the 2020 Lakers, they're finding it hard to not only win on the high stage, but to even get a chance to shine and get back to the NBA championship stage. Just a testament to the talent of the league, and you see that on full display right now. I talk about, individuals you can point out, even on the worst of the worst teams, you can point out all these individuals with potential in different situations. But look at these four teams. The OKC Thunder, you've got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, J-Dub, Jalen Williams the center, Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, Cason Wallace, Isaiah Hartenstein. Of course, you've got the big three there of SGA, J-Dub, and Chet Holmgren. But beyond that, you've got Lou Dort, who was undrafted and has really become kind of the heart and soul of this OKC team. You have Isaiah Hartenstein, who really broke out and showed his value last year. He's been a great pickup for the Thunder when they needed an extra big man. Isaiah Joe, a lights out shooter, one of the best in the association. Cason Wallace, very good two-way guard. And the list goes on. Alex Caruso, who I somehow forgot to mention when I was rounding down that roster. One of the best, if not the best perimeter defender in the entire NBA. Someone who knows his role and executes it to the fullest extent of his ability. The Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards, a rising superstar. Rudy Gobert, a four-time Defensive Player of the Year. Mike Conley, a steady point guard. Jaden McDaniels, one of the best defenders in the NBA. Julius Randle, who has really bought into this Minnesota system and is playing the best ball of his career, the highest IQ basketball that he has ever played in the NBA. Off that bench, man, you got Naz Reid, who was Sixth Man of the Year just a year ago, and would be a starting big man on a lot of other teams. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who has not had the prettiest postseason, but is a very good defender and incredibly underrated on that end of the floor, as well as Dante DiVincenzo. Rob Dillingham, who can come in off the bench and be a little bit of a spark plug and offensive creator for you pretty much immediately. Then moving over to the East, you've got, of course, the Pacers' Tyrese Haliburton, who has had questions and accusations thrown at him of being overrated. But he has been the offensive hub of this team that has now made the conference finals for 2 straight years, and is in charge of not only scoring, but also being an incredible creator for others, as well as Miles Turner, who in concept is the ideal modern center. Pascal Siakam, Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith. Moving over to the Knicks, oh man, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. There is so much talent in the league today. And with that, you don't really know who's going to win on any given night. That has been seen this NBA postseason as well. These Timberwolves, they beat the Los Angeles Lakers, led by LeBron James and Luka Doncic in 5 games. The OKC Thunder, they topped a generational center in Jokic just last round. Then for the Knicks and Pacers, they beat the juggernauts in the Eastern Conference in the Celtics and the Cavaliers. And part of that came down to injuries, but part of it was just the manner in which they played and they executed. And then once you recognize that talent, you can begin to kind of look at some individual matchups. One I'm quite excited for is Chet Holmgren versus Rudy Gobert. Holmgren is this young, up-and-coming center with gobs of potential, who already receives plenty of flowers for both his offensive contributions as well as his defensive efforts. Rudy Gobert, on the other hand, this is a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. He is established as much as any defender could be. But there are a lot of question marks surrounding him, especially in the eyes of the media. Questions about his limitations offensively, as well as not being the most switchable defender, which, as the league progresses more and more towards that versatile, switchable style of defense, has become increasingly more important in conversations. Then you get beyond the context into the on-the-court stuff with these two. I think about how Rudy Gobert is going to guard Chet Holmgren, because Holmgren is not only a rim runner, but someone who can let it fly a little bit as well. And with Gobert not being known for his perimeter defense, how is he going to respond to that? Of course, you have the guard matchup there in Anthony Edwards versus SGA. I want to see J-Dub versus Jaden McDaniels, though. Now, Randle is technically the power forward of the Wolves, but defensively, I like my odds better when I'm going against someone like J-Dub, who has had a little bit of an up and down postseason. I want to see Jaden McDaniels on Jalen Williams, one of the best defenders at that small forward position, if not the best in the NBA, against the secondary scoring option for the Thunder. And then that kind of leaves Randle to maybe on Lou Dort. And that's also a little bit interesting because for both of these guys, they're really, their cities are bought into them. OKC, man, you go to a game there, they got their own Lou chance and everything for Lou Dort. They love him, right? This is someone who they watched develop and grow into his own as a player, as an undrafted free agent for the Thunder. And then for Julius Randle, this is someone who for the longest time was seen as not a winning player, a playoff dropper. And I'm a Wolves fan. I had my doubts about him going into this year. He has bought into his role with the team, and he's playing the best basketball of his career for the Wolves. The cities and the teams are behind both these guys. How are they going to perform in the conference finals? Then on the other side, with the Knicks and Pacers, let's talk about the coaching here. On one end, you have Tom Thibodeau, who, of course, is known for really utilizing his players, especially his starters, to the fullest extent that their bodies can handle. In game 1 against Boston, for example, Mikal Bridges, he played 51 minutes. This is someone who's going to have his players play hard for all 48 minutes a game. And then on the other end, while the minutes are not as extreme necessarily, you've got Rick Carlisle in the Indiana Pacers, which is a team that is really built upon a very fast-paced offense, near the top of the league in tempo, as well as number 1 in terms of distance traveled. But Indiana also, they have a little bit of a control of their offense as well, for sure. Typically, when you mix tempo in with efficiency, you typically think that efficiency is going to go downhill. But for Indiana, they've been really able to level it out in being near the top of the league in field goal and three-point percentage, as well as be a very high-tempo, fast-paced offense. So there's a control there. It's not necessarily unstable. It's just different. So you've got two really strong coaching philosophies there. And then you get into the players. For the point guards, I think both Haliburton and Jalen Brunson could be in for some really impressive showings, especially in terms of box score production, because they're not going up against great defenders at that point guard spot, right? They're known mainly for their offensive capabilities, so they could put on a little bit of a show. At the same time, though, you got guys like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. They're going to pay more attention to Howley than they are at Benedict Mathurin, for example, though. So there's some help defense there for the Knicks. And into the big men, Karl-Anthony Towns and Miles Turner, two very similar archetypes. Now, Miles Turner is a great shot blocker, but overall, he's not really known for his defensive prowess outside of that. And similar for Karl-Anthony Towns, he is not known as a defender. And then on the offensive end, both these guys are known for spacing the floor. Miles Turner, he takes a very good volume of threes. And his efficiency is not pretty for a point guard or even a forward. But, as a center, you can absolutely deal with his three point percentage, especially at the volume he's taking it. It's kind of unorthodox, and it works. So he's known as a shooting big man. And then Karl-Anthony Towns is wide regarded probably as a top two shooting big of all time. You ask him, he's number one. It's him and Dirk. I don't know if I'd go that far, but in terms of the center spot, I would wager that he is the best of all time. So two guys who can absolutely shoot and are not afraid to shoot. So that's an interesting matchup. And so you can go across the board. There's so many things, little nuances to go into. It's going to be great. So much talent on both sides, which has been the case this entire NBA season. This is how we even got to this point, where it's teams that are not repeating as champs or anything. Super cool to see. I think we're going to be in for a really, really fun NBA postseason. And there are some really, really intriguing matchups, whether it's on the court, considering the context off of the court, or even the coaches, especially in the case of Carlisle versus Thibodeau, even of the Thunder and Timberwolves, man. Mark Daignault, he's really gotten his flowers lately, but Chris Finch is one of the best coaches in Timberwolves history. And that's not a very high bar, but he has had a lot of success in Minnesota, something that they have not seen in a long time. So there's a lot going into both these conference finals series. It's going to be really fun. I could see both these series going for an extended period of games. It's going to be great. We are so lucky to be NBA fans. I am so excited for this. This NBA postseason has been unforgettable already. So many memorable moments. We've had some upsets. We've had some incredible individual performances. We saw what Kawhi Leonard could do when he's healthy once again. We saw Jason Tatum have one of the best games of his career before he sadly went down. It's been a great NBA playoffs, but it's only going to get better with this conference finals, in my opinion. What time it is to be an NBA fan, man. It's going to be real fun. I'm excited. And with that, so much beating nowadays, it becomes so negative. Everything is putting a player under a microscope and examining everything that they do wrong and never lifting them up when they're doing things right. Let's take a look at both of these series and really make an effort to appreciate them and highlight the good things about them. That's what I try to do on here. If that's something you're into, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, whatever it is with engagement, whatever you want to do. But if this is the last thing you ever see, last thing you ever hear from me, I just want to leave you with that and ask you to really appreciate this postseason, even if you don't have a team in right now. In the caliber of players that we're watching and taking everything, the atmosphere, the players, the performances, the different schemes and the matchups, and be very, very thankful and grateful for it because it's a great time to be an NBA fan. So much talent in the league and so much to dig into. And that is fully exemplified by this conference finals. Thank you very much for listening.